by Kate Stern, who is an esteemed curator who I love, whose work I love. She's curated in numerous museums and galleries, as well as the renowned Frosty collection here in Santa Monica. The guests will be, in not necessarily in this order, we will have Bryant Toth, who is a gallerist and curator from the Toth Gallery, who's traveled to Cuba many times over the past several years. We have the renowned, internationally famous Havana-born Hector Frank, and we have Stephen Sertilman, who is a Cuban art collector and does discoveries in art. He's traveled to the Caribbean and Latin America collecting art for more than 30 years. And so with that, Kate Stern, take it away.
Hi there, thank you. I'm just unmuting myself. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. Okay, hi everybody. Thank you for this. This is exciting for me. I originally went to Cuba in 2000 with my then husband, and we went at that time on what was considered a medical fact-finding mission. So nothing to do with art. We went and brought supplies to a children's oncology hospital. It was a real awakening and eye-opening experience for me, although we were able to, at that time, see Buena Vista Social Club perform. They had just done their recording with Ry Cooder, and we got to see them perform at the big theater there, the Nacional. But one thing that I fell in love with in Cuba in 2000 was we took a drive out into the country, and I don't know where we went, but it was about 3.5 hours away. And along the way, it looked very jungly. I kept seeing on everybody's front porch, because porches are aplenty in the countryside of Cuba, a chair that looked like an architectural piece to me. I knew it was a work of art, and I kept seeing, I must have seen 100 of them. And I knew some artist, something had made them. Oops, not yet with that. And I've lost my screen, but hopefully you guys can all hear me. So anyhow, I fell in love with, I kept thinking, oh my God, there's an artist out in the middle of the jungle making chairs. And I wanted to go back and try and work my way back, see where I was. That didn't happen, but I did decide to start something called Take Me to the Art. And in 2019, along with my travel partner in these journeys, Shauna Hoffman, we took 2 groups to Cuba, 2 exclusive high-end small group, we called them luxury tours to Cuba, one in, now we can show the graphic if you want to, Lulu, one in March of 2019 and one in November for the 500-year anniversary. So this is just, I don't know if you can see the whole thing. I'm only seeing part of it, but it's the graphic for the invitation. And that was can you slide that up, sorry, Lulu, so that it's more of it is on the screen, or somehow it's being cut off. Anyway, it's got a wonderful art piece, which you can see part of. I don't know if the rest of you can see all of it, but this was the announcement that we did when we took the group to Cuba. And so I thought I'd start off just showing you, before we get into bringing on the guests, and I'm not going to focus as much on art as they will on the artists. I'm going to let them do that. But if you can go over to Lulu to the next shot, I'm getting, my image is cut off on the screen, so I'm not sure. Can anybody else, can anybody hear me? I can't tell. Can you slide, there we go. Are you able, pardon me everybody, Lulu, can you slide this up so things aren't cut off on the screen? I don't know if anybody else is getting it cut off, but I'm getting more images than one. I guess I'm viewing your screen. Okay, well, let me see if I can turn on, here we go. I'm back, so let me do this for a minute. Let me go into the speaker view. All right, well, when we get the photo on, what I thought I'd do is, there we go, now we're working. Okay, so that was it. I took a group, I call it under the banner, Take Me to the Art Cuba. We did the 2 tours. Some, I can't say it wasn't a bumpy road, some of the ride, and that is what is Cuba. You don't know if you'll get Wi-Fi. You don't know if people will show up when they say they will, for even with planned tours. So it had some rough roads, but it was absolutely exciting, stimulating, artistic, wonderful, and fun. So I wanted to show you just a few photos of sort of the street life of Cuba. So if we could bring up whatever the next photo is, Lulu, that would be great. Well, that's just me on day 1. So it was my first day back in 19 years or 20 years to Cuba, and just about to start the tour. And it's just, I remember that moment. I remember the excitement of that moment, having traveled to a foreign country, the first time with 9 people, the second time with 18 people. Okay, we can just keep moving through. That photo, yeah. So this is very common in Havana. You will see a lot of photos of Che, whether they're on posters or artworks or t-shirts. You're going to see a lot of color. These are sort of the alleyways. And then there's little, you can just keep walking into people's, I can't even quite call them stores, but they're more like, what would you call them? I'm having a senior moment, but that area right there with the photo of Che. Okay, and then let's go to the next one. So there we go. So that is in Old Havana down on the plaza. So the architecture is quite beautiful and everything is colorful. And they resurfaced these buildings. So at one time when I was there in 2000, they didn't look nearly this beautiful. So there's a great mix of what looks very, very run down and what looks beautifully restored. But the architecture is just gorgeous throughout Cuba. Okay. You can make that a lot larger. So there's a lot of street art in Cuba, and I did meet quite a few street artists. And this is in San Isidro Allende. I hope I said that right. Where there are some beautiful Allende, where there's some beautiful murals painted, and that was one that I loved. Okay, next. So another thing common in Cuba. This was a photo I took of, and it could have been one of 50. Is children sitting in the doorways. There's a lot of street animals, which was a really kind of heartbreaking for both myself and my tour partner, Shauna, as we both do dog rescue and we're big dog lovers. But in this case, I was very happy that this little boy, this dog belonged to somebody. But it's very common for children to sit out in the stoop, that's his mother behind him, and just watch, just people watch. A lot of times you won't see doors, you won't see windows, you'll just see everything is open. So that was just a photo I took that I particularly like. And we can just keep going through again, just walking down the street. The little girl on the left is in a uniform. That's one of the regular school uniforms in Cuba, but you can start to see sort of the colors in different streets that almost look like alleyways. And you can just keep going through. Okay, so this is, music is everywhere in Cuba. And we decided to start our tour, our trip, with a private rooftop concert. And what people do, it's very common there, is they rent out their home for private concerts, or in this case, their roof. It was a 360-degree view. And the 9 of us had a private concert on the very first day. This is what we did when we got off the plane. We stayed at a villa and we went here and we had this beautiful concert. But music is everywhere. People play in the streets, people dance in the streets. It's wonderful. Okay, we can go to the next one. So now we're going to go over to the Museo De Bel Artes, which is the big museum in Havana. It's breathtaking. I absolutely fell in love with the museum. I could have stayed there all day. I could do a whole show on the museum, but I chose this one piece. This is a Wilfredo Land piece, and he has an entire floor of works at the museum. This is part of our group in the first tour. We may have Peggy Jacobs Bader on with us today, who's in far left there. Oops, not yet. Okay. Anyway, she was in the far left, and but I was going to tell you about Wilfredo Land. Go ahead and Google him. Wait, sorry, Lulu, go back. We're sorry, we're going way too fast. If you can go back to the one with Hector, I mean with Jose, the artwork, not the photo of me and Jose. I know somebody's writing that the images have been cut off. I know, I see that too, and we're practicing, so bear with us. Right now, I'm not sure what's happening, but we're going to work our way back. Okay, so good. So somehow the photos are being cut off, but you can see we're only missing our legs, so you don't need to see them. But anyway, I won't talk about, there we go, thank you, about him more, other than it's a gorgeous floor of the museum, and this was my favorite piece. Okay, the next piece I do want to talk about, there we go. So Jose Manuel Flores is an artist who is very dear to my heart. In the early 2000s, I curated 5 exhibitions for Children's Museum here in Los Angeles. And Jose was a part of them. And at that time, you could not send artwork directly from Cuba to America. So it was routed through, I think it was Spain or Venezuela. Nope, if you could go back to the one we were on, Lulu. It was routed through Spain or no, sorry, sorry. You can go back. I'll tell you what, I know what'll be easier. I'll just say next one when we're ready for the next one. Maybe let's try it that way. Sorry, we're all newbies at this. Anyway, Jose is someone I met, who I had never met, but he had been in 4 different exhibitions of mine, and I loved his work, and we had a real bond without speaking the same language. He doesn't speak a word of English. So we worked through a translator, and we stayed in touch over a 20-year period until I met him, which is the next photo that has me with Jose, if you can access that photo. Okay, well stay there for a minute. This is very well-known body of work of Jose's when he first started working with, if you stay on that, Lulu, these are cubes of leaves, and he works a lot with elements of the earth. I'm going to show you a piece I was gifted by him while at his studio in Cuba. And the work of Jose's that I first fell in love with are called bundles, and they are made using old photographs. This one is not of his family, but they were originally of his family. And then because paper was very scarce there, they were he had what we would know as craft paper, brown paper, wrapping paper, tied in bundles. And I had the great honor of being gifted one by Jose Manuel Flores. He's one of the national artists of Havana. And then the next photo is just when I finally, 20 years into the relationship, was able to meet Jose. And that photo is taken by my friend Nancy LaRue, and it was a really endearing moment for me. He would have joined us today, but he doesn't speak English and he can't get Wi-Fi. So I'm just doing this in his honor, pretend that he is here. Okay, then the next, we're going to go over to, there's one other art exhibit space I want to show you, exhibition space, and it's called Fabrica De Arte. And it is a combination / nightclub, art gallery, art venue. It has a theater, it has 2 restaurants. It's very rough looking in this sense, in that it's got stripped down walls, but it is fantastic. It opens at about 9 p.m. There are lines around the block. I didn't have enough images to really get you a good feel from it, but that's Shauna and myself, my partner in the Take Me to the Art Cuba tours. And then I thought I'd share one piece of art from there by an artist named Vi. And this was a work I liked a lot. If you can go to the next pic. And again, they're cut off for some reason. There we go. So this piece is a 3-dimensional sort of light box work that I loved and was very striking to me and very contemporary. It's very interesting to be in these buildings that are so old and then have it juxtaposed with very contemporary art. So that's just one work I wanted to share with you from Fabrica De Arte. And let's see, what do we have next? Okay, so we did some studio visits, which is of course a highlight of taking people to Cuba and leading tours. I'm not going to go into detail with each of those, but it was exciting to go meet Roberto Salas, Cuba's probably most famous photographer. And this is one of his very well-known pieces, photos of Che Guevara and Castro, and that's my cousin Steve holding it, who came on the tour. So Roberto met with us and spoke with us and showed us and talked to us about all of his important pieces and what it was like to experience Che and what it was like to have Fidel make him his personal photographer. So we got a lot of conversations about the inner workings and what Fidel was like, the other side, if you didn't know about the other side. Okay, so that I wanted to share with you. And then let's see, what do we have next? Okay, then if you can enlarge that photo. So this was really interesting. We got to see what I'll call sort of the underbelly, the underside, the behind the scenes world that you don't typically get taken on an art tour. In our first trip, we were asked by the tour company if we wanted to. Her friend, which is the gentleman in the middle, was leading tours and taking people to areas he knew wouldn't be seen so that we could see sort of this other side of Cuba, of Havana life. He took us to a tattoo parlor. He took us to a barber shop, but the barber, the woman's son, who he also met, had been jailed, was sentenced to 3 years in jail for a particular artwork that was considered anti-political. And all of his friends gathered together to get him out. We can talk about that when we speak with Jose, but about the restrictions, I mean, when we speak with Hector, and limitations that are placed upon artists in Cuba. Maybe Bryant will touch on that too, but I just wanted you to see this was a real eye-opener and quite wonderful. Okay, so let's see, where are we going to next? Trying to get my, okay. So I love Vinales. So we took our groups to the countryside of Vinales, which is about 3.5 hours outside of Havana. It's a farm country and sort of jungle-y in areas. These are cave paintings. They did what's the word? Brighten them up over the last few years, but they have been there for a very long time. And it's quite beautiful to see it because you're driving around in what looks like farm country and jungle area. And suddenly you come upon this. So we took both groups to these cave paintings, cave murals, as they call them. And then in the next shot, while we're out in Vinales, I just wanted to show you this family because this is very typical as well. This is a farmer in his family that we met with. He also had horses, so we all did a ride through his crops, and it was quite beautiful. And this is his family, the grandmother there, who kind of runs the roost, and the children. And it's again a very common look of Cuban women with cigars, people with big eyes. They're beautiful, beautiful, exquisite people and the warmest people you'll ever meet. You can't tell from that photo, but trust me, they are. Okay, and then last I wanted to show you a tobacco farmer. So we all learned, you have to take people to these things because they want to learn to roll cigars. I don't even like cigarettes, but it was fun to learn from this farmer how to harvest and roll cigars. So you can see the tobacco leaves hanging in the back. So that's something else we did, is go out to Vinales. And then next, what is next? Is that the last that I have, Lulu? Okay, I think that's the end of mine until we get to, I have a few photos of Hector Frank, but I'm going to save them for when I introduce Hector. But I just wanted to give you that little brief sort of overview and then introduce our first panelist, Bryant Toth, and just let you know that I learned of Hector Frank, who is our special guest today, our special artist guest, through Bryant, without Bryant knowing that that's how I learned of him. But I did a lot of research to choose what artists I wanted to visit, particularly the first trip, and was having a hard time narrowing it down to 2 or 3 artists. And I read an article and I saw a video that Bryant had made talking about Hector, and I knew immediately that he was the one. So let me introduce to you Bryant, and he will tell you about his great knowledge and love of Cuba and Cuban artists.
Wonderful. Kate, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to talk about Cuba, a country I obviously love so much, but also a little backstory on my relationship with Hector and his art as well. Good news, the internet did go out in Havana, but it seems like it's back up. So we do have the artist, which I will give some backstory in, and then Hector, live from Havana, will be able to walk you through his studio. But long story short, I'm not Cuban, but I found myself there on my first trip in '09 and just had this unbelievable love and passion for the country. Hector was the first artist I actually met, and the idea of going was just as an adventurer, a traveler, real no intent how this would end up turning into a career choice, opening a gallery, specializing in Cuban arts. But that journey is what I find some of the most fascinating stuff. So I'll jump into a little bit of a slideshow, and I'll give a little bit of backstory of our gallery before hopping into Hector's work in particular. But our gallery is named Toth Gallery. We're based in the Lower East Side in Manhattan. But the story and the journey is more than, apologies, jump to the last. Apologies.
Always happy to see dogs.
Yeah. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, as I was saying, in 2009, and Kate did a wonderful kind of backstory of Cuba and what the feel and the streets look like and the people. And how I kind of describe it is this unconditional form of creativity, this passion for color, working together, being intuitive is a beautiful way of kind of describing Cuban people. So going there, it's not the easiest place to kind of like step into the art world. All the artists kind of show out of their personal homes. There are beautiful museums, but you need this kind of guiding lights and guiding tour to kind of bring you in to see that true creative pulse that is there. Whether if it's music, if it's dance, if it's fine arts, Cubans are renownedly known for their creative nature and their creative talent, and it's so obvious throughout there. A little bit more of like what the streets look like, the color, the buildings are gorgeous, even though renovations are definitely needed. There's layers and layers of beautiful paint throughout the streets, and this kind of idea of being intuitive and not throwing something away. And I'll get more into that with Hector's work and how he applies that to his particular paintings. But it's amazing what was be able to create during obviously challenging times. So where it all began, there obviously are the conflicts and issues dealing with Cuba, with if it's travel, if it's shipment of art, if it's all of these kind of hurdles, if it's materials and art supplies for the artist to actually create, there's all of these challenges. And for me, that challenge and being able to assist and help these artists was well my intent before even going into the business of opening a gallery. So the photo to the left is one of the first trips, and you can see that this is actually how art is able to be taken out of the country. It's fully legal. You have to get the proper documentations, but there really isn't a way to ship anything off the island. There is no way to insure anything that you would put underneath a plane. So the safest way is to really unroll it, bring it with you all the way back. And in that process, a lot of the artists understand that their paintings are going to be unstretched. So how much time and energy and professionalism they put into their exact materials allows the safety of the piece in transportation, which I think is interesting. So a little bit more about the gallery, and I'll start where we are today, but then I'll go back to where it all began. This is our roster. We work with a series of different artists, all different ages, different mediums, different style. But beyond that, my passion for Cuba was not necessarily just the artists I work with. It was how we can kind of bring the work to the masses, understand and show the world this creative talent that's on the islands that had been hidden for so long. And not Cuban art obviously has its notoriety and has the artists that everyone knows and sees in museums throughout the world, but really some of the artists and the channels were hidden for so long. So some artists got more attention than others, mainly because there wasn't an outlet and there was an opportunity to educate people on a broader scale. And that was a mission with us from the beginning. So well before we launched our permanent space on the Lower East Side, our original model was to do these temporary pop-ups. We actually didn't foresee how much of an advantage that was for us now. Obviously, there were multiple hurdles to jump through. If it was shipping work to different destinations, if it was finding a temporary pop-up space in a different city, if it was hiring a new staff and training them per city that we were in, all of those logistics obviously seems like a headache, but for a young dealer and gallerist, I love that challenge. But in turn, by doing shows throughout the United States, if it's Los Angeles, San Francisco, Nashville, New Orleans, all throughout different areas in New York, in turn, our global audience was much larger and our following would grow per city that we were in. So now, especially during a time in a pandemic where the gallery is temporarily closed, we have an audience that wants to contribute. We have an audience that wants to support the artists. We have built quite a large online platform already with these different areas. So it was definitely advantageous. Here's a little bit of examples of a couple of the shows that we did. Obviously Hector's work, which I'll touch about in a second, is down here in the bottom left. Pedro Pablo Oliva in the top left is one of the grand masters all throughout Cuba. Alain Pino, and then this group show that we did in the bottom corner. But one thing that I think is really interesting with our model, but I think is so important that galleries are adapting and galleries are doing throughout the world, is really utilizing, everything is about the arts and everything is about the pieces being shown. And Kate can attest to this. The curation is a huge part of that, and how you can really utilize the space and bring other creative talents together was something that inspired me from the beginning. So in these photos, you can see how, other than the openings, other than receptions, and other than dinners, we utilize the space in so many different ways, bringing creative talents, if they're musicians, if they're dancers, if it is a panel discussion around a female director, which is in the bottom right, if it's bringing in Cuban musicians to play during the openings. We do a lot of partnerships with specialty cocktail brands, hospitality companies, and the idea behind that is having, everything is about the arts, but having the feel of the space come alive and bringing creative talents together. And you see that throughout Cuba, you see that throughout our markets like New York and Los Angeles. I think it's so important to allow creativity and creative minds to really come together. This was a dinner that we did during Hector's last exhibition in our gallery space in New York. So again, normal gallery hours until 6 or 7, and then in the evening, totally different collector feel in the space. So now I'm going to give a brief overview of the maestro who is with us today and will speak. And I'll kind of go through a couple example pieces of his work, but I'll kind of tell you what to look for. Hector will then kind of dive in more of his creative talent and creative mind. But to begin, Hector, our friendship goes way, way beyond a business relationship. he's kind of my eyes and ears and my introduction to Cuba. So for my first trip in 2009, I've probably gone over 35 times. My fiance and I lived there for multiple months and really call it a second home. So it's amazing to have worked with him. It's amazing to have brought his work around the world. And one thing that we definitely pride ourselves with is we want the artist to attend every exhibition. So you'll meet Hector in a second, but his work makes so much more sense when you see him, see his energy, see his expressions. It's a joy to have him accompany the work, talk about his work, and really he's the highlight at every opening. And collectors and press and everyone constantly, just his energy tells it all itself. So this is an example of Hector's work, and I know Steve's going to go and give a wonderful kind of montage of his work and progression throughout the years. I'm going to start a little bit with his newer pieces, and these are all, this is a portrait series of our last exhibition in 2009. What you can see here, and we'll jump into these two examples, we always call it mixed media on canvas. So if you look closely in the faces, all of these portraits are untitled. He doesn't describe it necessarily as an individual person, a neighbor, a relative. It's not of a particular person. It's how he describes it as people's inner emotions coming out on their face and their expressions. So they are neutral in the sense of it's happy if it's sad. It's neutral in the sense by gender for some. It's really kind of people's expressions coming out and what Hector feels of his surroundings. If you look closely in the face, why it's mixed media is these are all individual pieces of paper that Hector has painted separately, collaged onto the canvas, slowly tearing around the corners. And if you get closer to it, the intricate details and the idea behind how much energy he works on these pieces is truly astonishing. He doesn't work on a single piece at once. He works at multiple pieces, which is compelling. And then every piece that you can see, we've probably seen 6 or 7 different versions of that piece before he feels that it's complete. And it's really the background to the expression of the face, to the eyes, to the mouth, never wanting it to kind of overpower itself. So this coral piece that you can see on the left, it used to be a much hotter, bright orange, and it challenged Hector to kind of figure out what would make it so he felt it was complete. And it was softening that background color, which kind of brought the colors in the face a little bit stronger. This was a series that we did in 2018. I thought this was a wonderful example. This is 100% acrylic on canvas, but obviously there's a lot of texture, there's a lot of depth to Hector's work, there's a lot of color. So for this particular series, he wanted to achieve the same amount of texture and the same amount of depth to the piece, but with only acrylic on canvas. So using a very minimal color palette and multiple different shades of that color palette to still achieve his complexity in his expressions. And again, with Hector, our bond is more of a friendship than a business relationship. We've been a team since the beginning. So it's an honor to work with such a creative talent in mind. A little bit about some of the other artists we work with. This is Alan Pino, master in watercolor. Rene Pena, one of the leading Cuban photographers, which is outstanding. Pedro Pablo Leiva, one of the true Cuban masters, works in multiple different trades. George Wesley, which is a fantastic artist that lives in New Jersey. And then kind of leave it, you can't have a gallery without a gallery dog. We fell in love with, obviously, Cuba, so it coined our puppy's name, Havana. He's at the gallery all the time and probably has sold more arts than I have throughout the years. So anyhow, thank you so much. Kate, I'm gonna turn it back over to you. And
thank you, Brian. I'm
pleasure.
so thrilled to hear all of this, and the affection and love for Hector is broad. I can see you, Hector, in your little square over there. We're going to go to you soon, but I wanted to tell a little story about, which you know, of course, we've laughed and joked about it, but for everyone else, when I decided that Hector was who we wanted to visit, I then had to figure out how I would reach him. And I saw that he was on Instagram. So I sent some notes on Instagram and we wrote back and forth. Now I thought I was writing with Hector, but as it turns out, I was writing with his wife, Teresa. And I said what I was doing and could I bring a group? And then I had our tour company in Cuba reach out to him, blah, blah, blah. So now I was an enormous fan before I met him, but very recently, a recent discover. We go to his house, as Brian is saying, because most artist studios, you go to their home. And when you go to Hector's house, you go outside and then you go in and you go through his little office and you go upstairs and through the house and up to his studio, which is across a patio. So I don't know what came over me, but because we've been having these wonderful little exchanges, when I saw when Teresa answered the door, she said, oh, you're not alone. Now I had 10 people with me. I had the 9 guests on our tour. I guess there were even more, Shauna and our Cuban tour guide. And I thought, alone? No, I'm bringing a tour. And I got very nervous that she was thrown that I wasn't coming alone. But I said, no, I have a group. She said, no problem. So we walk up. I see Hector. And he says, hola, and the expression on his face was so warm and so engaging. And I don't know what came over me, but I ran about 50 feet and leaped into the air and threw myself on him, literally jumped on him, wrapped my arms around, and somebody caught this photo on the landing on the way down. So what really happened was I grabbed him, he picked me around, swung me around, but if you see the sort of surprised look on his face, and then one of our guests said, oh, you know each other. And I said, no, we just met. And Hector and I laughed, and it was a love affair between Hector and Teresa and myself since. So Hector, that's us immediately after we met. So what was really thrilling for me was that our group had the same reaction. Now I'm bringing them to meet artists, but I have no idea if they're going to buy the work, like the work, what could happen. Well, it was so relatable. And almost everybody in the group bought something and there were commissions. And that was so exciting and rewarding for me. And Hector later came to the house and brought everything, and thus began the relationship. The next trip, he came to dinner with us, he came to the house, he brought more people bought. So now we've been in, a few of those people are on. I see my cousin David, who was on the tour with us, and Peggy Jacobs, who was in the first group, maybe some others. So Hector and Teresa, I see you there. Let's unmute Hector. I don't know if you have to unmute yourself or Lulu, if you unmute him, but I want his screen to go large. So let's see how we do that. Hector, are you muted? Can you unmute yourself?
Ya puedes hablar ya.
Victor, can you hear me?
Yes, they just now that they're online. So
Okay.
here is Hector.
Can you unmute your dad? He's still muted.
Can you hear him?
No, I can hear you, but it says he's muted.
Habla.
Oh, Hector, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hola, amigo. Hi, guys. Now, how do we make his screen go large? Lulu, can you highlight or spotlight Hector and Teresa there?
Yes.
There we are. Okay, I don't know if you all realize how exciting this is, but they don't really get Zoom in Cuba. So somehow the screen blocking Teresa, I don't know if everybody's seeing it. It says mute, stop chat. I don't know if we can move that somehow. There we go. So live from Havana, we have Hector Frank and his wife, Teresa. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, my friend. You've had quite the buildup. So We're all talking about how wonderful you are. And there's the beautiful painting behind you that Bryant was telling us about. And I'm going to leave this to you. I want you to just tell us about your work. And I would love to share with people a little what Bryant touched on, which is the difficulties that, well, for a buyer or a collector, but also for a Cuban artist to get materials, but also anything you want to share with us, we're game. We love you already.
Ok. Ella quiere que tú le cuentes un poco sobre cómo es tu vida de artista aquí y
That's
nada,
his son, Victor, who's translating for us.
que cuentes más o menos. Claro.
Okay, in Spanish, but my English is not too good for many blah, blah, blah.
I will translate.
Okay, Victor will translate. Okay.
No, la vida en Cuba es muy difícil.
Life in Cuba, it may be a little bit hard for an artist.
Pero, todos los días, o sea, yo nací con la revolución
I was born in the revolution, with the revolution.
y nosotros los que nacimos con la revolución ya tenemos un entrenamiento, o sea, una manera de sortear la dificultad.
And the people from that generation have a training on how to escape the difficult of the system.
Porque nuestra vida siempre ha sido de subir y de bajar, de subir y de bajar. No puedes decir que tienes algo estable.
As our lives have always been from of ups and downs, and nothing is stable here in Cuba. So
Y para ya concentrarnos directamente en el arte, en el trabajo como artista, que es un trabajo que lleva una infraestructura compleja en cuanto a
and for art, that of course may be complicated because art needs to have a structure in for materials, for everything, for business.
yes. Lo mejor es que yo he podido ir encontrando espacios a lo largo de mi carrera con la ayuda de mi esposa, que sin ella hubiera sido imposible hacer este trabajo.
But in time, I have been able to find the spaces, and I've been able to work with the help of my wife.
Y algunas otras personas que también han tenido mucho que ver con el desempeño de mi trabajo.
People that have helped me, like Brian.
Por ejemplo, Brian, François, Samuel, en San Francisco, François de Francia, Brian de San Francisco también, han sido Steve Séptima también, que tuvo un papel muy importante también en mi vida como artista, me ayudó también en muchas cosas.
Many people, many dear friends. Steve Sertiman from New York, Brian, Todd, Samuel Duval, François Janet, many friends. Without help, it's very hard to make art in Cuba.
O sea, todo no ha sido mérito del artista, porque también ha sido el esfuerzo de mucha gente alrededor mío que han tenido que soportarme y a la vez me han apoyado.
It has been the collective effort of many dear friends that have endured me and helped me.
Y ahí también cuando va pasando el tiempo, también tú vas teniendo un poco más de claridad en tu mente, de estabilidad, de seguridad, que te va ayudando a sortear las dificultades.
And with time, I have become more confident, and I have been able to have much more time to concentrate in the important thing that is work.
Pero mi vida particularmente es casi todo el tiempo en el estudio y en mi casa. No soy un artista de perseguir las exhibiciones o perseguir lo que sucede culturalmente. No soy un artista que tiene esa línea.
My life is more than anything in my studio. I spend most of my time in the studio working. I'm not a social artist, so I don't go often to shows. Only to my closest friends, and well.
Porque para que entiendan bien, mi formación como artista fue un hecho particular. O sea, yo no participé en una escuela, o sea, no tuve compañeros, no participé de una formación colectiva, sino todo fue un hecho muy individual.
Because of my formation, academic formation was an individual process. In my studio with myself.
Sí, bueno, por la parte de mi trabajo, sí, por la parte de mi trabajo, o sea,
¿Algo que quieras decir de
sería siempre bueno decir que, o sea, no me siento todavía que estoy en el punto más alto, ni que he alcanzado las metas más grandes, pero me siento en el camino.
I am happy in the moment I am living now in my work. I don't feel completely fulfilled, but I feel I am on the way.
Mhm.
Okay.
So good. So good. Talk to us about the two works behind you.
Háblale de los trabajos detrás de ti, si le puedes decir algo.
Bueno, esto fue, tú recuerdas que yo había hecho algunas exhibiciones en Nueva York.
Do you remember I did a few shows in New York till 2017?
Sí, con mi muy querido, estimado y adorado y amado Brian Torres.
With my dear and beloved friend Brian Toth.
Llegado a este punto, que fue el 2018, que Brian siempre organiza los shows, me da la fecha y yo más o menos tengo una idea de el tamaño del lugar, de la galería.
Till this point in 2018, following the plan that to have one show every year, to the specific gallery, to the space.
Entonces yo venía haciendo figuras con mucho color, con collage, mucho color, y quería hacer algo que no saliera de mi serie de retratos, pero que fuera completamente diferente.
I was painting with a lot of colors, portraits with a lot of colors, and at that moment, I don't know why, I just wanted to change, and
entonces, por primera vez en mi vida de artista, yo me tomé el tiempo de sentarme a dibujar y a diseñar estas figuras que están aquí detrás de mí, que al final estuve muy contento. Brian también.
So for the first time, I started to make designs, sketches, and from that came these designs and the whole series. And I frankly felt very happy with the outcome.
Entonces, también por primera vez también me senté a diseñar una figura femenina y una figura masculina dentro de este diseño, de esta serie que tenía una gran economía de color y hacía una gran economía de muchas cosas en ella cuando la comparas con las otras.
It was a little bit of economic of color and maybe some things that were in my other works just edited out, and for the first time also I wanted to introduce a female character, because of my previous portraits were not so much of a male or a female.
Sí, porque que fuera mujer o hombre no era algo que yo pensara antes de construir un retrato.
Because of the gender, it was not something that I would put a lot of thought before making the portrait.
En algún punto de la construcción del retrato, de la figuración, de pensar en él, de estar pintándolo, en algún punto él se desviaba hacia femenino o hacia masculino.
At some point in the process, it will go to one gender or the other.
Pero yo lo dejaba a él que me dijera que era mujer o hombre.
But it was sort of a
Era fantástico.
conversation.
Era fantástico, ese momento es fantástico.
It was a fantastic experience for me.
Y aquí, llegado a este punto, llegado a esa exhibición del 2018, sí ya yo me centré en hacer un personaje femenino desde el principio y uno masculino desde el principio.
And in this specific show, I was trying to make a specifically female character and a male character from the beginning.
Exacto. Entonces, este diseño, esta pieza, particularmente esta pieza, tiene dos personajes dentro.
So this piece specifically has two characters.
Okay.
In the
Normalmente yo solamente las piezas que hago para hablar de alguno de los problemas o de la idiosincrasia o si se puede decir, de los problemas o de las cosas que suceden en mi país, es donde único yo uso múltiples personajes.
So in the specific situation in my work, the only pieces I talk about stories, personal or political or any kind, is where I use many characters, several.
Pero aquí quise poner una pareja.
But in here I wanted to play with the couple idea.
Yo no había tenido esa idea hasta que esta pieza es post esa exposición.
Because this piece is after the show.
Yes. Y quise ver cómo sería la relación o sea, la visualidad que tenía una pareja en el interior de la pieza.
And I wanted to go in that direction, how will look the couple in the picture with this style of
Y es por eso que tiene esa expresión, la cara femenina tiene esa inclinación sobre el eje y como que lo mira a él por alguna situación que yo no tengo muy clara en mi mente, pero
there is something hidden
que he
because
vivido.
of the reason why the female character is looking up the male one. I don't know, is also hidden from me.
Pero que he vivido personalmente de mi esposa hacia mí, que sí ha tenido esas miradas hacia mi persona.
So maybe it's a personal experience that I have from my wife to me, to myself. She looking up to me and being, how to say,
Sí.
proud of me, of my work.
Pero básicamente, para que la gente entienda por qué los retratos, porque siempre es una pregunta que todo el mundo me hace.
So basically, for anybody to understand why only portraits, because everybody wants to know.
Que cuando yo comencé en la pintura,
When I began,
comencé haciendo abstracción,
I was doing mostly abstract work.
cosa que me gustó mucho, porque para mí la abstracción es bien compleja.
I really enjoyed that. It was natural for me because, even so, it was complicated.
Pero siempre que traté de hacer abstracciones, había una manera, siempre había alguna figuración que trataba de aflorar.
But always somehow I realized from the beginning that there was some human figure trying to come out of the picture.
Y estuvo luchando siempre por salir de la abstracción y hacerse independiente. O sea, lo pude ver después con la experiencia, porque al principio era nuevo todo para mí.
After a lot of many years of work with experience, I was able to realize that that was happening for a reason.
Hasta que fui limpiando toda la abstracción alrededor, se fue relegando a background. La abstracción se fue quedando como background y el retrato fue naciendo. Cuando se ve un poco los años de mi trabajo, se ve.
Until one point where abstract content was in the background, was secondary, and the portraits came to life. And you can see that when you look at my work in the timeline, the evolution.
Y Nueva York fue el punto culminante del retrato.
And New York was the highest, the highlight of the
Fue
portrait.
donde yo le di forma y lo llevé hasta lo que lo he podido llevar hoy en día.
And I shaped it as much as I wanted, and it became this you are seeing now.
Ahora estamos, ahora esta misma serie me ha dado la oportunidad de, como tiene esa simpleza, poder introducir, poder hacer esculturas que tienen que ver con este tipo de figuración, que son retratos también, pero tienen la simpleza en cuanto a líneas y colores necesarias para yo poder ensamblar esculturas con ellas, que me gusta, o sea, tiene un atractivo especial para mí.
And this series with lines and fewer colors also made me start to be interested in to make sculptures, because these designs allow me to work in a different way, the sculpture. Anything else?
There is a, we don't have it to share today, but there is that beautiful, maybe somehow, Brian, we can show it on some way, somehow, or people can look at it, the sculpture, it's either a piece that you're going to create. I don't know if it's a sketch of it or if it's actually a piece that you've made, but there is that beautiful sculpture I've seen He sent me something with a photo of it, but we don't have it there. We don't have it here today. Hector, oh, here we go. Go, Brian. Okay, look at this, everybody. It's just spectacular. Now, is that a piece, Brian or Hector, that it looks like it's been made, but I thought I was under the impression at one time that it's a future piece. Is that a photo of a real piece?
This is it's a digital rendering.
It
So
looks
it
so
is.
real.
It's in the process, but spectacular.
Someone is asking if it is glass. If it will be glass or if it's metal, or someone is asking in the chat.
Yes.
It'll be.
Sorry, apologies.
No. Tell us, Victor.
Ella quiere saber si tienes alguna idea específica del material, si va a ser bronce, porque están viendo la foto del renderizado digital.
Hasta ahora pensamos, la primera prueba que vamos a hacer, que es la llamada prueba del artista, pensamos utilizar un cuarzo y un acero inoxidable.
On the first tryout, which is called the artist try, proof, exactly, sorry.
No.
We think we may be using quartz.
Macat.
Might be using what? I can't really hear. Cast.
Quartz.
Oh, quartz.
Quartz and
Wow, okay.
stainless.
¿Por qué los materiales? Porque el cuarzo tiene varios colores.
Sí.
Y la textura es muy similar a lo que está pintado, particularmente esta pieza, esta que está aquí.
This is the main character, similar, and there are similarities with these materials and this design.
Sí, y es por supuesto, yo ahora puedo oír, o sea, cuando tú vas a hacer una escultura, tú necesitas conocer cuántos materiales tú tienes a tu disposición. Pero para hacer una prueba, ahora está muy bien el acero y el cuarzo.
So because when you are going to make more works, I will be needing more a bigger selection of materials.
Right.
I wanted to try these materials first.
I can't wait to see it in real life. Brian, thank you for having that there and handy. We're going to need, we need and have the honor to also speak with Steve Sir Tillman. So we're going to move on. But before we do, I wanted to say how utterly exciting this is to know that you're sitting there in Havana, and that I feel, first of all, I miss you. And this makes me wish I was there. And, but it's pretty fun to have, there's something about Zoom, you know, even though we'd all rather be there in person. It's like, Brian, I can see your face on the screen and it's through you. We'd never met you, but I learned of them. And this makes me want to break through the screen and twirl them both around and give you a hug, Victor. And there's something very lovely about just the whole thing. And I love you both very much. And I thank you for this honor, for being with us.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you.
Victor, can we see your face somehow real quick? Victor, can you turn so everybody can say hi to you? I want you to see their son. There he is.
Hey, Victor.
And Victor is also an artist, everybody. So we'll do that another time. So stick with us. We're going to go over to Steve Sir Tillman, who I'm going to introduce now, and we'll actually be seeing more of your work, Hector, because Steve has collected you, as you know, for many years. So we get to see sort of an evolution of some of your work. Steve, are you here? Are you unmuted?
I'm here and
There you
unmuted.
are. So
Yeah.
there you are. Oh, good. We've got both of them side by side. So we wanted to, Owen, who is the owner of the gallery, GPG Gallery, who's hosting this with Yuri, asked for a collector. And Brian suggested Steve, who has amassed quite an extensive and beautiful collection, and he's going to tell you about that. And he also has, is it a nonprofit, or is it a for-profit, Discoveries in Art?
It's really just a way for people to view the collection. It's more about education than anything else.
Okay, so I'll have you tell us about that. I don't need to introduce you more because here you are. And we're reaching him. Are you in Connecticut right now?
I am in Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, you're in Martha's Vineyard, even more exciting. Okay, so tell us what you'd like to share.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Kate. And also thanks very much, Brian, for giving them my name. It's always a great joy for me to share my collecting habit with people. It's a topic that I love to talk about and may go on too much about. Also, first, I'd love to give un gran saludo y abrazo, a big greeting and hug to Teresa, Hector, and Victor. It's been much too long. Also, I thought I would mention to people that Hector's studio, which you saw bits and pieces of in photographs, he built it himself above their home in Havana. And it's an awesome place. It's a whole floor, which a good portion of it, the indoors portion, is where he paints, and then on the outside is where he parties. And it's a very fun spot. So my presentation will be a little bit different because our other presenters have had the opportunity to sit while they talk. But for me, I'm going to give you a bit of a cross section of Cuban art as we have it on the walls here. So I'll be walking around, and I'll be beginning with Hector. I apologize for my lack of professionalism as a videographer, but I will do the best I can.
We're so excited to get the live tour. This is fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Well, here we go. So this is Hector's piece. Well, he mentioned that he was originally doing abstract work, and this was 2001. Does it look familiar, Hector? Parece familiar, Hector?
Can you hear us, Hector?
Te pregunto si te resulta familiar.
It's very old.
It's very old.
It's a long time ago. It's a different Hector.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not going to do the 4 Hector pieces that I'll show you consecutively because they're in different rooms. But here clearly is the abstract original work of Hector. It's, I think, oil pencil and maybe tempera. He would know better than I on paper. And in that era, when I visited him, it was around when I first met him. I think him and Teresa in 2000 or 2001. I would go and they would have a whole bunch of these, and with abstract, it's what moves you. So I like this one, and I've had it hanging on a wall somewhere ever since. So another artist that I'd like to show you is this piece by Diego Torres. It's photorealism. This is pencil. And when I show it to people, I'll just kind of zoom in a little bit. When I show it to people, they really are amazed by the level of detail. I'm a sucker for photorealism myself. So that is Diego. And then here we have Abel Barroso. Abel is a wonderful guy who I've also known since for the very beginning. I guess I should say a little bit about how I came to be involved in all of this. Like Bryant, I am not Cuban either, but I first went in 1998 because I heard about the great art scene there. I went with my wife and my in-laws, and my in-laws had been collecting art since the 60s, so that was kind of the impetus. And I got totally hooked. So here I am 22 years later, still at it. This piece is called Lounge Chair, and I want to show you that it is made with pencil shavings.
Oh, wow.
And I can't imagine the amount of work that went into creating all of these pencil shavings and not breaking them. And then where the water washes ashore up here, you can see there are pencils that are cut in that particular way to give it the effect of water washing ashore. I'm kind of working around my dining room table here, so apologies for the lack of stability. And you can see the Caribbean images in the center. It's a little bit of a statement about how people come to the country and they enjoy the relaxation of being in a Caribbean country, but it's a lot harder work for the people who actually live there. Okay, and then coming around here, working around my plants is a work by Choco, Eduardo Roca. And this piece he is considered one of the masters of calligraphy. And so calligraphy is you take whatever you want and you glue it to a backing like a heavy piece of cardboard, and then you put paint on it and you run it through a press. So you get the textures of whatever you've put on the backing. And he won the national prize, as Forge did, as Kate mentioned. Choco won the national prize about 2 years ago. His work is mostly prints, but he does a good deal of sculpture as well. And I love the balance
May
of
I
this
ask
piece.
a question about that piece?
Sure.
So that technique, in Cuba, he has his own, that kind of press there, or he has to go somewhere, or
Well, he
has
does.
it, or what is,
Most people would be working at some type of collective studio,
Right.
but Choco has, I'm trying to visualize it. I know he has one press, and I think he might have two presses of his own. He's got the drying racks, and he's had enough success that he has the money to buy it. How he found them is probably the bigger mystery.
right.
But there are a few people that do print work that have their own presses. It's not unique, but it is unusual.
That's great. Yeah, we visited Calligraphica, so I got to
Taille
see that.
Experimental, for instance, where they have all those old presses, that's a really great place.
Yeah, this is beautiful piece. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and moving around this room. These maps are by Ibrahim Miranda. He's very well known for these maps. The maps are actually, you can see the unusual shape, and what that's about is picture 1/3 of each of the maps. 1/3 is 4 pages from a book where the binding's been cut out of the center. So the book is maybe 12 inches by 8 inches or something like that. And he takes the bindings out, he takes the maps, he glues them together into threes to get this long sheets, and then he also does a lot of print work, and so he's putting icons, historical icons typically, but other things onto them with India ink.
Beautiful.
But the idea is that he's recreating the map and recreating the island. I apologize that I don't have gallery lighting here, but this is another photorealism piece. This is pencil. This is by Antonio Espinosa. And again, if I zoom in, I don't know what you can really see there, but you can see this the delicate pencil work that goes into it. It really does look like waves. He was raised by.
Believe, yeah, it's very hard to believe that one is not a photograph.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. He was raised by the water, and it's for him. It's his life, and it's his main subject of his work. Another photorealism piece is this. This is another Diego Torres piece, but here he's moved into painting, and I'm very happy that he's taken my hometown and under his wing and is now painting these beautiful scenes of very mundane places. The deli, diner kind of scene. Places that we haven't seen very much in the last year.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's him. And now I'm going to have to move elsewhere. So whoops, just got lost here. Can I turn the, yeah, okay. So just so you don't get dizzy, I thought I might do this. Whoop, got to go through the kitchen. And okay, so this piece is the next Hector Frank piece. This is called Familia, and it's a 2002 piece. Hard to see really, but it's oil pencil and probably regular pencil on paper. And I'm sorry for all the reflections in the supposedly non-glare glass.
And also in the atonal colors, in the not seeing the bright colors yet. It's interesting.
Yeah, black and white, right. But I really love the way things were outlined.
Hector, do you remember this piece well?
Very old.
Yeah, almost 20 years old. Hard to believe.
Yes.
Okay, and then let's see. The third of his pieces is upstairs, so I may just skip it because I think it's going to be a little hard to get up there. So I'll go to the fourth in a moment. But this is another Diego Torres piece. He did a lot of, Diego now lives in Florida. And so like many who have left the country, at the time he painted this, he was in Cuba. And so you can see that the angst and the anticipation of planning a departure, I think is something that you can see from the works. Okay, here is, this is a 2006 piece. It's called The Tightrope Walker. And this is a Hector piece as well. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. So this is the last of the Hector pieces I have.
And does that have pieces of wood or cardboard on it, or what are we seeing?
It has a very high texture. Oh, where'd it go? The texture is really incredible. I don't know what it, no, it's not wood, but I would say this is at least a quarter-inch, if not more, of height in the middle area here. There's so much texture to it. That's what really drew me to the piece. And only Hector could tell you how he did it. But I love this piece here too. It hangs above our in our den above the couch. So, I mean, I don't know whether I can show you this from the side. Yeah, you can kind of see it, right? It's how much height there really is. A tremendous amount built up there. Okay, so then I guess I have gone through most of what I was going to talk about. This is Luis Camejo. He is typically a painter of urbanscapes, but this is a print, and it's called from the series Gas Stations that he did. He's really great at doing shading, and that comes through in his paintings as well. That's what he's more well known for. So that's a little tour of what, excuse me, let me turn the camera around. Thank you. That's a little bit of what we have here. And really, it's been one of the passions of our lives to build this collection and to bring more artists' work to public view. One of the things that we do a lot of is showing the works. We had a show that opened in January of last year at the Fairfield University Art Museum, which unfortunately closed early due to COVID. But we get a lot of pleasure sharing the work with people, and every show is greeted with tremendous enthusiasm. I think that more than anything, it's a testimonial to the level of creativity that exists in the Cuban art community. We also have the website that Kate mentioned, which is called discoveriesinart.com. It's not a sales site. It's really an educational site. And we have about 70 artists in our collection. And so each artist has a page with what information they send me. I post invitations to their shows, book covers when they're in a book, their CVs, that sort of thing. But it's also a way for people to just thumb through one page with works of that many artists on it and say, hey, I like this style. Let me click on this. And then you go to that artist and you see the works that we have in the collection from that artist. So it helps, create a little bit of depth to their knowledge of the artists that they enjoy working with or enjoy the works of, I'm sorry. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Kate, thank you very much. I'll turn it back to you.
I just want to say, Steve, it's really beautiful that I feel mushy today. Well, I'm always mushy. I'm a mush bunny, but it's really beautiful. And Bryant, this is where you came from, where you talked about. There's something beautiful about wanting to share work that you love. For those who collect it, it's one thing. You get to have it, right? You get to live with it. You get to see it. But to want to share it, I get tremendous joy from turning people on to art that I love, not because I love it, but because I want them to hopefully love it and have that experience. And
right.
It's like Hector said, without his friends or the people who love his work or love him, bringing it here or to other countries, Bryant, with you taking it to so many different countries, not just different places, is beautiful, and particularly where there aren't a lot of outlets. As you said, Bryant, it's not like you can't just walk around and there are galleries. Okay, there's a few galleries in Cuba and they're nice, but you're not going to walk around and just keep finding they're hidden gems, and you have to navigate your way or have somebody tell you or turn you on to. And so, Steve, you putting this together for the shared bringing people.
I'd also like to tell you that the first show that we did that was exclusively our collection, it was done at a gallery in New Canaan, Connecticut, and Hector and Teresa came to the show, so it made it really special. And that was, I don't know, it was about 7-8 years ago, but we have made a point of trying to invite artists whose work are in the show. And at that time, it was easier for everyone to get visas. So it was happening with some regularity. Now it's a rather frustrating experience.
Well, let's play that under the new, let's call it management of the country. We will be able to exchange with Cuba, go back to Cuba, have Cuba come here and have Cubans come here and have everything be more easily accessible and just, you know, to bring that joy back that we had a little
Here.
in time of. So we have gone over the time, but I just want to see very quickly if there's any questions that somebody really wanted to ask, because I forgot to say at the beginning to put them in the chat. And I only saw the one, but if anybody has something very specific that you want to ask, if you can type it into the chat right now. We have a thank you from Jody Benassi to everybody. And she says, your collection is beautiful, Steve.
Thank you.
If anybody else, okay. Well, I think we're looking like I'm not seeing them. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who came, and please know that you can continue to, oh, someone has a question. Yes, we'd have to do this one quickly though, because that sounds like it could be involved, but Yuri, you tell me if we have time for this. Jody is asking if Hector could please explain his paper process.
You mean on the new works or the old ones, Jody?
So you can unmute yourself if you want. Old ones.
Oh, old ones. Okay. Are you talking about the ones, Jody? Are you talking about the ones that have with the thick paper one, or the?
Yes, it would be the thick paper one. I just find it very interesting because I mainly draw and paint, but of course I love hearing about other
Well,
people.
let's get a quick answer from Hector about the kind of materials that go into that to that thickness on that painting.
Ellos quieren saber la pieza que tiene Steve, que tenía un cierto espesor en algún lugar, ¿te acuerdas? De textura. ¿Cómo hiciste? ¿Qué tipo de trabajo hacías ahí?
Bueno,
Si quieres, habla de hace cuánto tiempo, qué técnica era.
Sí, primeramente, ya puedo hablar, ¿no? Primeramente, esa pieza que tiene Steve, creo que es del 2006. En el 2006 yo estaba hundido profundamente en aprender a pintar.
I was deep down the depth of experimenting with materials, learning how to paint, basically.
Okay, porque en ese momento que yo comenzaba, en 2006, tendría 6 años de trabajo no muy continuo, porque también sí.
Because at that point I was just painting for 6 years, and it was not a continuous amount of work because it was the beginning and I had other issues. I wasn't only painting.
Pero siempre me preocupó desde un principio. Siempre he sido así con todo. Siempre me preocupó la calidad del material y sobre todo la larga vida que podría tener el material que yo utilizara en arte. Tuve mucho respeto por eso siempre.
Although I was mainly concerned about the life, how long will last the materials I will use on the artworks. So that took a lot of experiment.
Precisamente ese material que yo
that material specifically,
fue una investigación que tuve que hacer para obtener una masa que fuera acrílico 100% pura y un nivel de acidez extremadamente bajo.
100% acrylic pure mass with a low level of acidness.
Recuerdo que consulté inclusive con amigos míos que eran químicos, que tenían conocimientos de ese tipo de cosas, de ese tipo de materiales.
I remember I did some research with some friends, chemist friends, that had access to similar materials. And remember always this was Cuba, hard to get materials professionally.
Y entonces recuerdo que ese material era un material que se utilizaba en construcción.
So this was a construction material.
Era una pasta que es 100% acrílico y se utiliza.
It was a paste 100% acrylic.
Se utiliza como aditivo de construcción.
And it's like an additive
Para
construction.
Aportarle estabilidad e impermeabilidad y elasticidad a determinados materiales de construcción.
To make some other materials more flexible, more durable.
Porque para construir gruesas texturas, tú necesitas, primero que todo, siempre pensé que no perdiera propiedades, por ejemplo, elasticidad, porque recuerden que cualquier cosa que Steve o otros coleccionistas adquirieran, se tenían que enrollar y tenían que ser capaces de soportar el maltrato.
Because once it was in the artwork, any material I would use, it will need to be able to be rolled and stretched, and you know, it was necessary to be durable.
Y fuerte.
And yes.
Entonces, recuerdo que con eso fue que además ese material también tenía la propiedad que tú podías mezclarlo con colores.
And also had another property that it was okay to mix it with colors.
Porque era el mismo, es como la misma base que se utiliza para la construcción de los colores por los fabricantes de pinturas.
Was like a medium.
Es una resina acrílica. Entonces, el material llegó a satisfacer mis necesidades y yo lo utilicé en esa época mía mucho tiempo. Mientras estuve con utilizando las texturas.
So as long as I did thick texture work, I used this material for a long time.
And muchos otros artistas también.
And many other artists, fellow artists too.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, the main thank you, besides the artist, goes to Kate Stern, who proposed this show and organized this show and admirably brought this together in a wonderful way. I think this particular show, of all the shows we've done, even the one when we had broadcast from Estonia and it was in the middle of the night there, or partly in the middle of the night, even when we went to Australia and Brazil, I don't think we've had such a wonderful ability to connect with people who feel so far away but yet are so close, which is essentially what art is about and what Art World is about. And so Kate Stern, I want to thank you for putting the show together, which included Hector, Bryant, and Stephen, all of whom, Stephen, your collection is wonderful. Bryant, your work on behalf of Cuban artists and on behalf of your gallery is amazing. And Hector, your work is tremendous and wonderful. And I encourage everybody to go to the BG Gallery. And Kate, one more thing you would like to
I
say?
just wanted to I need to give a shout out to Lulu, who ran the
Yes,
all
absolutely.
behind the scenes things here and saved me because I am so technically unsavvy. So thank you for everything.
Also, we also have to, very importantly, we have to thank Victor, who figured out the technical aspects of making us able to broadcast from Cuba where it's not allowed.
I know, I don't know if we're allowed to say that on here, but I want you all to realize how hard it is not only to get Wi-Fi, but they don't have Zoom access. Don't tell anybody.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you all.
Thank you, Victor. So on behalf of Om at the BG Gallery and myself, Yuri Cole at the Venice Institute of Contemporary Art, I encourage you to go to the BG Gallery and And now that you know about these Cuban artists, look them up, study them as soon as possible, go to Cuba and come back for the next Art World. We're not sure where we're going to go, but I'm sure that it's going to have a hard time comparing to this show. This has been one of our best shows. And I want to thank you all for all of your hard work. Keep making art, keep talking to each other, and let's ride this COVID out. And we'll see you in your studios and galleries coming up. Our next Art World will be announced shortly. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Bye, gang.